Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's explainer. If you're ready to decode the totally mind-bending concepts of higher dimensions, well, you're in the exact right place. Today, we're going on a really fascinating journey to separate the wild, speculative world of sci-fi superpowers from the grounded, proven reality of true physics. We've got a lot of massive concepts to unpack, and we're going to make them completely digestible for you. So let's get to it.
So picture this. Can falling into a four-dimensional tesseract actually grant you the power to control time? Think back to that incredible climax in the movie Interstellar. The hero, Cooper, drops into a black hole, and boom, he suddenly finds himself inside this massive 4D object, a tesseract. Suddenly, he's navigating his daughter's past, he's moving forward and backward through time exactly like you or I would just walk across a 3D room. It's an absolutely stunning visual, but it really makes you wonder, is moving through time like three-dimensional space an actual scientific reality?
Section 1. Interstellar and the Fourth Dimension.
Now, Interstellar actually gets a lot of praise for having remarkably accurate foundational science. Remember how Cooper is physically moving through past events? Well, let's flip it to his daughter's perspective. She can't see or hear him at all. She just senses this presence that she calls a ghost. And honestly, this is a perfect illustration of a really wild theory. What if things we call ghosts are actually just higher dimensional beings trying to interact with our world? A world they can perceive, but we can't fully see. And you know what? Science actually leaves the door open for this. Different versions of string field theory propose anywhere from 5 to 26 dimensions existing right alongside us, with superstring theory specifically arguing for exactly 10 dimensions.
Which brings us to Section 2, Escalating Higher Dimensional Powers.
So if a fourth-dimensional being can manipulate time, what happens if we keep climbing that ladder? According to these viral internet theories, hitting the fourth and fifth dimensions gives you the convenient ability to control time. You can slow it down, speed it up, rewind, fast forward, kind of like scrubbing through a video on your phone. But here's the kicker. You only have the power to view that information. You can't actually change anything. To alter the past, you've got to level up. You have to ascend to the sixth dimension. And that is where you supposedly gain the immense power to physically manipulate timelines.
And honestly, nothing illustrates this six-dimensional power quite like Marvel's Infinity War. You probably know the exact quote we're talking about here. Doctor Strange is sitting there viewing over 14 million possibilities, and then he actively selects the one exact timeline where they defeat Thanos. He willingly hands over the time stone because he's already seen the domino effect of his actions across millions of different branches. According to these theories, that is the ultimate six-dimensional experience. You see all the possibilities, pick the best one, and essentially write your own future. But even then, there's a huge catch. You can only manipulate existing timelines. You literally can't create entirely new ones.
Let's move to the 7th and 8th dimensions and see how this builds, because things get even wilder. Step 1 actually roots back to the famous American physicist Hugh Everett, who proposed that every single time we make a choice, our timeline branches into two. Now, in the 6th dimension, you could manipulate choices made after you were born. But steps 2 and 3 show that ascending to the 7th and 8th dimensions gives you the ultimate power of self-creation. At this level, you're not just tweaking daily decisions anymore. You gain the absolute power to choose your own origin point. You're deciding exactly where and when you're even born.
Moving to Section 3, the ultimate 10D being.
Okay, so we've mastered our own timeline, we've picked our own birth, but what happens when you transcend personal timelines entirely? Well, at the 9th and 10th dimensions, you're no longer just controlling yourself, you literally have absolute control over all the laws of physics. We're talking complete control of the entire multiverse and the infinite separate timelines of everyone and everything in existence. Step by step, climbing these dimensional stairs supposedly upgrades you until you become the single most powerful, godlike being imaginable. But wait, let's hit the brakes for a second. Is this hierarchy of superpowers actual science, or is it just internet pseudoscience? Because everything we've talked about so far is really just what viral online theories claim happens. Now it's time to execute a hard pivot, drop the speculation, and look at what the modern scientific consensus actually says about all of this.
Section 4, the true scientific meaning.
To strip away all the sci-fi magic and the superheroes, we really need to look at what the word dimension actually means to a working physicist. A dimension is simply the exact number of independent directions or degrees of freedom in which an object can move freely in space. That's really it. So the crucial point is that a dimension isn't some magical realm that grants you superpowers. It is purely a mathematical and physical measurement of movement. It just asks, how freely can you move?
Let's break this down visually in Section 5, Visualizing 0 to 4 Dimensions.
To really make this click, we're going to do a progressive, block-by-block visual buildup. Pay close attention to how your degrees of freedom expand with every single step. Let's start at the absolute bottom with 0 dimensions, or 0D. Think of a single mathematical point. It has 0 length, 0 width, and 0 height. If you were somehow trapped right on this point, you couldn't turn left, right, up, or down. You have absolutely 0 freedom of movement. Now, let's accelerate slightly. Imagine we grab that single point and we just stretch it out. Boom, we've just created a one-dimensional space, a line. Now we have exactly 1 degree of freedom. If you're living on this line, you can move back and forth, but that is your one and only option. You're completely restricted to moving along one single independent direction.
All right, let's keep building. Take that 1D line and pull it sideways. You've now stretched it into a 2-dimensional space, a square. Notice how our freedom just expanded? Movement now exists in 2 independent directions. You can go back and forth, but now you can also go left to right. That right there is 2 degrees of freedom.
Now, let's ground ourselves in reality. Take that flat 2D square and pull it directly upwards. You've just created a 3D cube. Movement expands again, this time into 3 completely independent directions, back and forth, left to right, and up and down. And this is our universe. This is the 3-dimensional space that you and I currently live in, where we breathe and move freely with 3 degrees of physical freedom.
And finally, we arrive at the infamous 4th dimension. To get here, you have to mathematically extend that 3D cube one step further, which creates a 4-dimensional shape called the tesseract. But remember our definition? It's all about those degrees of freedom. A tesseract is simply a shape where movement could happen in a 4th spatial direction, entirely independent of up, down, left, right, forward, and backward. It is strictly a mathematical extension of geometric space.
Which leaves us with this really huge, lingering question. If a tesseract is purely a mathematical extension of geometric space, literally just a way to calculate a 4th direction of movement, does jumping into one actually let you rewrite time? Or is time a completely different kind of dimension altogether? We've stripped away the internet myths today and grounded ourselves in true physics. But the reality of how time actually weaves into the fabric of space? Well, that's a mystery that even today's most brilliant minds are still trying to solve. I highly encourage you to keep exploring these true limits of physics. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember, keep asking questions.